Hi, Sarah, and welcome back to the Beginning. So we're just going to have a little chat about your creative process, how you got into the creative industries, and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to start off by asking, is there any TV shows that you used to watch as a child that you think has influenced your work today or has just stood out to you as like, I really enjoyed that?
Yeah, no, loads. Cartoon wise, probably I absolutely loved the clangers when I was a kid. So maybe that's why I did a bit of stop frame, and things like Star Wars had a huge influence on me. Things like the stop frames in Jason and the Argonauts, all that kind of stuff. I was watching a lot of that when I was a kid, but I love films more than TV. That's what I was really watching.
Oh, yeah. Was there any films that particularly stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a complete Star Wars nut bag. I saw that. I was very young when I first saw it. I think I was only 6, and I actually thought it was real. And they had to explain to me that wasn't real, that there weren't people in the sky. And it's always stuck with me as one of the best cinemas I ever saw, just because I was so young, so exciting, and it's still good now. So.
Yeah. And you drew a lot as a child when we spoke earlier. Do you think that really influenced you when you got older and got into animation?
I think so. I mean, I was originally thinking about becoming an illustrator, so I drew all the time. So when I discovered animation at art school, I was like, oh my god, you can make drawings move. This is the best thing that's ever happened. So yes, I love drawing, and I drew all the time as a kid, all the time, probably more than anything else.
What was school like for you? Did you enjoy school? Was there anything you were particularly good at school?
I found school quite difficult because I'm quite dyslexic, so I struggled at the beginning, but once I got into it, I kind of got there. But I was really good at I was good at art, I was good at English. Oddly, I became very good at chemistry at one point. That doesn't make any sense to me now. And I'm quite nerdy, so I think I quite like the chemistry from that side of it. But yeah, English and art was always my big things that I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of people that get into creative industries are dyslexic, and you don't think that when you're younger. When you're younger, I think the narrative at school, as we were saying before, it's something that limits you and limits your career options. But I think I've noticed as well, people I've worked with before, there's so many people that are dyslexic,
Yeah,
and it's not
crazy.
really a limit. Yeah, yeah. It's
It's
more
crazy that people don't talk about it more, because I think we were in the office we were in a meeting like this the other week, and we were talking to a young artist, and he was saying he was struggling because he was dyslexic, and I said to him, "Oh, well, don't worry, I am." And then the other director also was, and then we were like, actually, all three of us are. So that's just hilarious. And then we just sort of generally asked around the studio, and it turned out an awful lot of us are. So I think it's quite common in the arts, and it's not something you should be worried about, but it's horrible when you're at school and then you suddenly think, I can't do anything. But, you suddenly find your people.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not limiting at all.
No,
Um, and you went to school in Liverpool.
I
What
went
was
to
that?
art
You went to
school in
art school.
Liverpool.
What was it like going to art school? Did you when you went to art school? Did you think, yeah, this is what I meant to do. This is definitely I'm on the right
Oh,
path.
yeah.
I want to be an illustrator. Yeah,
Oh, I was like, I got to, because I'd always be at school, I'd struggled. But when I got to art school, I was like, what? You just have to draw or like, do art things. That's your degree. I was like, well, that's no trouble for me. I loved it. I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But Liverpool was hilarious. It was a great school. It was a great place. It was in the early 90s. So it was complete chaos. And I love Liverpool. So recommend it. Go there. Hurrah.
was it at art school in Liverpool that you thought you wanted to do animation seriously? Is that how it
Yeah.
started? Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to do illustration, and then they had a small module on animation that they only had like a few, they didn't have many places. I think there were only 6 of us, or apologies if it was slightly more. But and when I got into that, I was like, oh my god, I really want to do this. I want to do this much more than illustration. So I sort of fought to get one of the slots. So I was doing graphic design, and then I went into animation from there. So yeah, super exciting when I discovered it.
Yeah. And when you left school, what were your kind of first steps into getting into animation?
Well, I ended up doing going to the NFTS, because I thought, I was in Liverpool, I wasn't really part of the industry, I didn't really understand it. So I sort of thought it would be better to go and do a bit more training. So I went to the NFTS, which is a fantastic place, and met a ton of people. And from that moment on, just went off into a career. Without that, it would have been much harder. But I think you can, I mean, nowadays it's so busy. It's totally different.
Yeah. And what was the first thing you worked on when you became an animator?
Oh God!
Do you remember?
God, you're really stressing me out now. I'm not entirely sure I can remember.
That you remember, or something that stands out to you.
I'm trying to think. I think the first thing we really did was straight out of Liverpool. We got a weird thing where we went into schools and hospitals and places like that, and we made short films with people, which was quite a fun thing to do because it was quite community based. But from that, I kind of made about 6 short films. And then from that, I decided, this is definitely what I want to do. And that's when I went to the NFTS. I think that was the first thing I can really remember doing.
Yeah, that's really funny, actually, because I started in community arts. So when I started making short films and stuff, it was all because I did that as like as a community project when I was younger. So yeah, I think community arts is so good at building a portfolio and just having a bit of non-judgmental space to make things and be creative.
Yeah, and it was probably the first time we'd actually worked with a group of people rather than me individually. So it was quite interesting, and you got to actually work with a team. And I was like, well, actually, this is great because lots of people doing lots of different things. So yeah, it was fun. But yeah, I think that's the first thing. God, probably isn't. Somebody will phone up and say, no, it wasn't that.
And then you moved into producing.
Yeah.
How was that move for you? When how did that come about, and what is it like now?
Well, it was a mistake at the time. Not a mistake. I mean, it wasn't. I was directing with another guy, and the producer fell ill. And our big boss at the time sort of came up to us and said, one of you lot's got to now be the producer. And the other directorate looked at me, and I was like, I'll do it, because he couldn't spell at all. So I thought it would be better for me to do it. So I did it. I had no idea. I had literally no training, no idea. And I was like, well, how difficult can it be? Well, it turned out to be quite difficult. But once I started doing it, I really thought, I really found something I really loved. So I was quite happy. How is it now? Much more, it's great being a producer, tons of stuff, tons of people that you meet. It's very exciting. You're from a project right from the start, right to the end. People often think the directors are there all the time, but actually often it's the producers that sit all the way through. So I think it's a great thing to do, but it's not as romantic as being a director, I think.
What's your favorite part of your job now?
I would think
these are a lot like interview questions, isn't it?
Yes, I know. I feel like I'm really up against it now. What is the favorite part of my job? The favorite part of my job probably is getting to work with young creatives and seeing them from being very young right through to delivering a show. What a trip. I mean, it's amazing to see people and talent come through like that. So I'm always massively enthusiastic on how we get the youngest people into the building, how we get the new voices, how we get young talent to come through, and especially in the UK, because I'm a UK based student myself and knew how hard it is. So anytime we can do that, it's a win for me.
So when you moved from being an animator to a producer, what was that like? What were the transferable skills? And do you think coming from that route of being an animator first, was that helpful in your role now?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, this, because there's not many producers that were animators first. Well, there are a few, but they're not so many. And I think it gives you amazing transferable skill because you actually understand the process to a certain extent, because you know how long it is to draw something. So you can actually sort of legitimately say, well, maybe that's going to take longer, maybe it isn't. So I think it does give you a very, very detailed understanding of animation that I think people often think, oh, I can't go from being the artistic side to the more management financial side. If you've got it in you, then I think it's a great skill to learn to draw first before becoming a producer, or make a model or something like that. I think it gives you a proper understanding of our process. So yeah, I would, if you can do it, it's not a bad career path.
What's it like now for you, like watching animations? Is there anything currently that inspires you? Can you watch animations without thinking,
No.
I wonder how they did that?
Yeah, I find it. I'm sure a lot of people would say this that are in the industry, but it's quite difficult to watch animation if you make it. So the last time I really remember watching a movie and thinking I can't do it anymore. Was I was watching The Incredibles, and there's a shot, and he leant forward, and he had a little bald patch, and I was like, oh, look at that hair render, that's amazing. And then I thought to myself, what am I doing? I completely lost the plot now. I'm no longer watching this as a movie. I'm watching it for the render. So yeah, it's really difficult. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you'll ever enjoy animation in the same way again. You just have a different view on it. So I don't know. Maybe one day. Maybe somebody will make something and it will completely transform me. But right now, I just watch it for oh. And also, if you've made it, it's almost impossible because you're like, I could have done that better. I should have done that. But we should have done that. Of course, you can't see it really as the audience anymore.
Yeah. Oh, do you think there is anything about your childhood that really influenced getting into animation? I think we've obviously touched on this before, but looking back on your career, is there things you thought, oh, I used to do that as a child, and that's definitely influenced? Or even
Yeah.
animations, is there any sort of themes that have come up in series?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think in storytelling terms that things that I was looking at when I was younger have stayed with me. And I used to keep books and books of stories. So I've still got a few of those hanging around that I refer to every now and then. Drawings, just constantly drawing stuff. So I do that even now. It drives everybody nuts in meetings because I'll do a very bad drawing and show it to a really great bunch of creatives and say, what about that? And they go, yeah, all right, Sarah, we get it. But even now, I think when you're a kid, all those sort of things that you do become the things that in the end are important. You might not think they are, but I think they end up being the things you do. And they keep with you. It's great. I mean, so lucky to do something you like.
Yeah, definitely. And is there one thing finally that you would say to a young person watching this who wants to get into, or not even a young person, someone who just wants to get a start in animation? What would you say to them?
I would say that the industry is at the busiest it's ever been, and you're really lucky. You're really lucky to be now. If you had been 10 years ago, like I was, or longer than that, I'm being nice to myself, it was much harder to get into. It was more like a cottage industry. But right now, it's a big, big industry, and you're seeing all this huge amount of activity. So I think the thing to do is just have your courage of your convictions and just do it. What are you going to lose? I mean, if you get a job, great. If you don't, you'll get one in the end if you really want to do it. So yes, go for it. That's what I say.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, for talking to us today and taking the time out of your day. I hope everyone at home learned something new or something that inspired them, and we'll see you in the next one.
Okay, nice to see you all. Bye.
See you.